Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers, or whatever time it is where you are, and welcome to the show. I'm excited about our guest today, Matt Kaufman, who's the Chief Executive Officer of MK Partners. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. I would love for you to tell me and the viewers a little bit about MK, what you're up to, but most importantly, I'm interested to know what sparked your idea to get started with it.
Okay. Well, MK Partners is a boutique consulting firm that specializes in Salesforce. And at this point, I've been doing it for 20 years. I started it, it'll be 20 years in March. When I started, I had to explain, typically, when I said that I work with Salesforce, I had to explain what that was. What I used to say is that every business, every nonprofit, every government agency needs to keep track of something. And often it's multiple things. And we help our clients keep track of those things. And we happen to use a technology called Salesforce. And that was usually enough that we could then, have a bigger conversation about whether it was a fit or not. Now I don't have to give that talk. I can just say Salesforce, and most people have seen the ads, or they've seen the signs, and they've heard of it. They know someone that uses it. Almost every major company in the world has Salesforce somewhere in it, and so it makes my job a lot easier. But at a high level, that is really what MK Partners does. We help our business customers, our nonprofit customers, and government agencies keep track of stuff.
And here in San Francisco, we get to look out the window and see the beautiful Salesforce Tower and guess what might be going on in the top of it for a show. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, I suggest you look it up. It's kind of cool.
It is, yeah.
And it's very cool. Yeah. So tell me this, when you started on this venture, what was the moment you knew this is my path?
Oh, wow. Well, I actually first started working at Salesforce, the company, back in 2002. I was living in the Bay Area, and I was living actually in the outer Sunset, so the southwest side of San Francisco. But I was working in the East Bay in Orinda at a small software company, and the commute was just really exhausting. And so I applied for a job on Craigslist. That's how long ago it was. And at a small company, a startup that I was familiar with because they do a lot of advertising in San Francisco, called Salesforce.com. And I got the job. And my job was to help the customers at the time make small little changes to the application because it was a very simple app back then. And my background prior to that was really IT. And so I was used to databases. I was used to building apps the old way, the more complicated way. And I didn't even when I started at Salesforce, I didn't understand that it was special. To me, it didn't make sense that all these customers were willing to spend money every month for something that I could build once and be done with. But that was the model at the time. It was a very different model. It was a subscription. Now everything's a subscription, but Salesforce was one of the first ones to have a subscription. And so I did the job. I enjoyed the job. The great company to work at. A lot of friendly people working there. I was friends with everyone I worked with, but I didn't really see why it was special yet. And this was 2002, so it was a long time ago. And what happened is I went to visit my sister across the country. She was living in Pennsylvania, and at the time I had a Palm Pilot. Some of your viewers and listeners might remember Palm Pilots, and it was just a weekend trip, so I didn't bring the charger. Because it was a weekend, the battery could last a couple days back then. But on my flight, I think somehow it got smushed in my bag, and the buttons were being pressed the entire flight. And when I landed, the battery was dead. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do?" Everything was in there. My itinerary, my sister's phone number, everything was in that Palm Pilot. And I remembered that because I worked at Salesforce, I had to know how to do all the advanced features, one of which was synchronizing Salesforce with your Palm Pilot. And I had synchronized my Salesforce with my Palm Pilot. And so I was able to get online and find everything I needed right there. I wrote it down or printed it out. And so I wasn't stuck in Philadelphia. I was able to figure out when my flight home was, and the code to get my boarding pass and all that kind of stuff, as well as phone numbers and addresses and everything, all because it was on the cloud. And that's really when it clicked, when I realized that, oh, this is a special app. This is not some server that I spun up. This is going to always be there. It's going to be up and running whether I'm working on it or not. And that was the moment. It was a long time ago. It was almost 20 years ago. But
I love this story for like a bunch of reasons. One is, first of all, I find it fascinating where these journeys take us. That's
Mhm.
one. Two, that it takes me back to my Palm days when I worked there from running global service ops, of hearing stories of what people had done with their devices,
Yeah.
and better yet, the panic that would ensue.
Hmm.
And what I really love about it is how far we've come of these cloud applications that are far, far beyond what we started years ago that keep us going. I just this weekend got new phones and in a panic thought I had lost everything I had and then remembered the cloud. And I can remember when we first started this, and I'm sure you do as well, of people being so skeptical of the cloud, like the many things that happen in our lives, including AI today. And yet they become such a fabric of our life and society.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I want you to tell the viewers, if you're willing, we see all the hats behind you, and I asked you the last time we met about this, and I'd love if you're willing to tell the viewers what the story is about all the hats.
Sure, of course. And the joke that I like to say is that I'm a man of many hats, and I really my role is very multifaceted. I always do whatever needs to get done. But the physical hats behind me is I live in Los Angeles, and we have very sunny weather year round. It's very rare that we have cloudy days or rainy days. But I was at the doctor years ago, and it was just a normal dermatologist appointment. And she said to me, "Oh, do you wear a hat when you're outside?" And I said, "Oh, no, it's kind of cloudy today. It was a little overcast." And she said, "It's LA. You should be wearing a hat every day. It's always sunny." And I couldn't argue. She was 100% correct. Yeah, that day may have been a little overcast, but other days are typically not. And so I started picking up a hat whenever I'd go to a conference. I'd pick up a hat, and all the hats behind me are somehow related to MK Partners or Salesforce. And I've been going to conferences for a long time, and so I have a lot of these hats. They were kind of just piling up all over the house. I'd pick one up, I'd wear them, and then sometimes they get a little dirty, they get a little old. You just wear a different one. They were piling up. And one day I was on Instagram and I saw a woman had done a background with her purses, and it was a beautiful background with a thick like rope, and the purses were all colorful. I was like, wow, that looks great. I probably can't do it that well, but I can do something like that with all of my hats and get them off the floor, get them behind me.
Huh.
It's a great conversation starter.
It is.
I do have the couple little jokes that I use here and there. And I just like it that it's a real background. It's not a fake background. I feel totally comfortable with it behind me. It tells people a little bit about me that I work with Salesforce. I wear hats, and I work at MK Partners.
And you've been to a few conferences.
I've been to many. Yeah.
So, you know what I've learned on this podcast, that I think for most people, we go back in time when we were much younger, and there's someone or ones in your life that has something to do with who you are today. Who is that for Matt?
Um, I grew up hearing stories every weekend, if not more often, about my grandparents. I have two sets of grandparents, one on my mom's side, one on my dad's side. On my mom's side, they came to America with a couple $100s in a suitcase. And I'd hear stories about how, my grandfather worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week, just to make it so that my mom could have a better life. And I think that really instilled a strong work ethic in me. And on my dad's side, that set of grandparents was already in the U.S., but I heard about how they had to survive during the Great Depression. And it's interesting. Both my grandfather and my grandmother's father. So even though they weren't, related, they both survived the Great Depression by going around looking for junk, cleaning it, fixing it, and then turning around and selling it. And that's the entrepreneurial spirit, I think, that
Yeah.
I kind of have, is from that side of the family.
Yeah, I love that. We have some similar stories about our grandparents and when they came over. It sounds like we'll have to share those offline someday.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know what personal values you have that have guided you from the start of these ventures that you're on.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm big on honesty and truthfulness and transparency. Even though I am the CEO of the company, I try to really run it as close to democracy as possible. Obviously, it's not totally feasible when we're talking about sensitive information and things like that. But if we're going to make a big decision, I want everyone to be involved. And over the years, there's been good times, there's been bad times. I try to always make sure that people are aware of how the company's doing, where we're headed, what's working well, what's not, and that gives them an opportunity to perhaps plan for their personal lives if they need to make a change, but also to step up and maybe help out and make a difference in the company. And so they're not just left to let the dice roll and see what happens. They could impact it and maybe even prevent something bad from happening.
Hmm.
And that's really from day one. I've always tried to run the company that way, where we're sharing this responsibility.
Yes.
I take a little more on my shoulders, but I really want us to be a team.
Did you ever take a personal risk on this journey that no one knows about or didn't see?
Yeah, I mean, I think all entrepreneurs do. I mean, fortunately for a service company where we're providing labor, I was our first employee. I was our first consultant, and so that was a small risk in some extent because I just tried to make money as quickly as possible. And once I had, then I wasn't burning my own personal cash. But I started the company almost 20 years ago, and there's been a lot of economic downturns over those 2 decades. The first one in 2008, we had a great recession, and I remember there was a point where I was bankrolling the company uh, with out of my own funds just to keep us going. And we pivoted at the time. I started the company. We only worked with nonprofits, and of course, nonprofits were hurt the most during that economic time. And so while we were pivoting, I was making sure that all of our employees got paid. And then over the years, whenever there's been a situation like that, whether it's taking a line of credit or anything like that, it's always on my name. So there is some personal risk, but we're a team, we're a family, and during the COVID pandemic when we had lockdown, we were impacted severely. A lot of our revenue was just kind of disappeared overnight, and we had to decide: do we start to do layoffs, or is there anything else we could do? And we had a big company meeting, and I talked with our employees, and I said, okay, there's a program in the state of California that the state was offering where we can do furloughs, and the state will provide some additional funds to all the people who are furloughed. And so we all agreed that we'll do a 4/5 work week, 1/5 furlough. So we all had Fridays off basically, and everybody got 4/5 of their pay, which was better than losing their jobs.
Absolutely.
And then the state kicked in a little extra, 1/5.
Yeah.
And it really was a shared responsibility amongst, like I said, I mean, we're like a family.
Amazing story. Have you ever doubted your vision on this journey?
Um, well, there are moments where I do doubt myself. Typically, it's because something bad has happened where I have been uh, too trusting of someone, and they took advantage of it. And that those moments have made me question my ability and my thinking. Am I seeing it right? Am I thinking about this clearly? How could I not see that this person was going to take advantage of me or the company? Those are the moments that have caused me to question myself. And usually I get through it because I have good support, both at home and at work, and my friends, who, reassure me, no, that's the aberration. Most people are good people,
Yeah.
and that person was going to hurt somebody. Better, and I think better for it to be me because I can recover than somebody who can't recover.
Yeah. What did you learn about trust from all that?
I'm not sure I learned my lesson because I've been burned multiple times. I'm an optimist, and so I'm very confident that I can do what needs to be done. I'm often confident that the people I work with, the people that work for us, can do what needs to be done too, and that they'll do things the right way. But sometimes that doesn't happen.
If somebody was watching you back in those very early days, what would surprise them most about Matt today?
Oh, that's a good question. It's funny. In school, I was not the hardest worker. Both my parents were teachers, and so I think it frustrated them that I wasn't always the hardest worker. So I still got good grades, but to me, and I still say this sometimes, 90 out of 100 is the perfect score because you got an A and you didn't work too hard.
Yes, yes.
My parents would have preferred that I aimed for 100, and I didn't.
Yeah, Matt, I had this thing where my mother worked in the school, and then I was the baby, and my mother, my brother, and I all went to the same junior high and senior high.
Mhm.
And all I ever heard was if you would only apply yourself, or if you'd only be like your brother, who was a straight A student on the honor roll. And
Yeah,
I was a bit more rebellious than he was. And that wasn't what was on my pattern. But I like this idea that a 90 is still an A and didn't have to work so hard.
yeah,
Some
that's the
people
way to
listening
think.
to that are going to use that as an excuse when they go home tonight, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know what do you feel like has become your leadership style through all this?
It's funny because I didn't intend to become a leader. But even early on, I remember in middle school, the teachers took aside some of the students and said, "Okay, a lot of kids start acting up in middle school. Those of you that we brought in this room, you're the leaders. We expect you to set the good example." And I was shocked. I was like, "Me, a leader? Like no one listens to me." But I think they saw something, and I think they were right. I don't always intend to have the loudest voice in the room, but I will speak up when I need to when I see something that's not okay. And so again, for my leadership style, I try to share the responsibility, which is not typical of most leaders. But I will take on the hard decisions, and I will take on the greater burden. I'm definitely a servant leader. So I've done every aspect of what we do, whether it's the actual consulting or software engineering, accounting, marketing. I've done it all, and I will help out whenever I'm needed. And I'm also just great to be kind of we call it, just a rubber duck that's just sitting there while someone else is talking so that they can figure it out. But by going through that process of explaining something to someone else, just a good listener, you often can figure out why something's not working or
Yes.
what you should do, right? And so I'm great at doing that, where I'll sit there, I'll listen, I'll nod my head, maybe ask some questions, and as part of that process, people figure out what it is they probably already knew. It just wasn't at the front of their mind.
Yeah, it's really great. I often say people just need a good listening to, and we've lost in many cases what it really means to truly listen. We tend to be thinking of our response while we're listening, and that's not listening. And
Right.
what people don't realize is the person that's speaking knows you're not listening as well. So, and today, and you've seen it, I know I've seen it, where technology is racing forward, and today with AI, it's even happening. I think faster than we all sometimes are holding on to, or at least the perception is that. So I'm curious how you balance taking bold steps with innovations and sustainability. Basically, how do you scale forward with technology and keep the lights on?
It is hard. It's very hard because you're almost starting a new business within your business. But during COVID, uh, times were tough, and so I actually pivoted slightly. We've always provided consulting services, we still do, and it's the bulk of what we do. But with the spare time, because we had that extra day a week, I went ahead and built an app, and we published an add-on app for Salesforce that does document generation, and it's kind of a business inside the business. And so that's difficult. I've tried to do it over the years. I've tried multiple times to kind of branch off, offer new services, or build an app or whatever it may be. But something always comes up. We'll have a client that is going to go live, and we got to have all hands on deck, and then that pushes something to the side. So in a way, even though the situation was terrible during the pandemic, we really got something positive out of it by being able to focus 20% of the time on launching an application. And so it's now an app that anyone can install, and it's a new stream of revenue for the company. And we're trying to do that again with some other apps. And AI definitely is something out there that we're using a lot. We use it in our day to day to try to do things faster that we could do, but the AI can do it much faster, like writing code or analyzing data, things like that. And then also incorporating it into applications, because at this point, customers expect it. Customers want AI to make their apps, faster and smarter and things like that. So we're incorporating it into the apps as well. But it's really hard to start some new initiative when we have existing clients and existing customers that need stuff from us. We either have to spend a little extra money and kind of allocate it towards that cause, or spend a little extra time. And so for me, as the CEO, I often will spend nights and weekends, time between calls and things like that, trying to push these initiatives forward, whether it's a new internal tool or a new app that we publish, and make those small pivots to keep us going.
I read an article yesterday and it was talking about um, companies and leaders in companies just wanting to say they're using AI without thinking through what the strategy is that they're using AI for in their business. Do you find that happening where people just want AI and not really looking at what it really means and how they're going to use it and how does it fit in their overall strategy?
Yes, all the time. It's gotten better. I think that was a little more prevalent a couple of years ago, where we'd hear people say, "Well, can you use AI and do it for less?" And our response at the time was, "We're already using AI, so this is less." But we do see that a lot, where people, they're looking for solutions, they're looking for ways to be more efficient, and they've heard the stories, they've heard the marketing about AI. And we actually were hired by one of our clients to build an application, and they insisted that we use AI in it, and it wasn't necessary. There are other libraries and tools out there that can do exactly what is needed. It's a very unique use case, but they insisted it had to use AI, so we did it and we built it. It'll end up costing more in the long run because it uses AI.
Uh,
So I think it's really important that you explore all the options before just going with the latest buzzword.
find the right option.
Yeah,
When the stakes are high, how does Matt make a decision?
I just go with my gut. When the stakes are high, I go with my gut. When I have the time, I'll make a spreadsheet and I'll compare attributes and pricing and pros and cons and everything. And I can do that forever. We work with database. Salesforce is a database. I like to say I'm a database guy or a spreadsheet guy. I love building out complex spreadsheets with formulas and things like that. I do it all the time. But when the stakes are high and it's important, I really just go with my gut, and I trust that somewhere in my subconscious that analysis has already been done, and I don't need to do a spreadsheet for it.
Interesting, interesting. How do you decide when it's time to pivot or push through?
Well, on the little things, I've said for years to all of our employees, if you've been spending 15 minutes on something and you didn't make any progress, please, raise your hand, ask the question. Don't just pound your head on your desk and try over and over again. Especially in our area, Salesforce, most things are very achievable. And so if you've spent 15 minutes without making any progress, ask the question. Someone here, whether it's me or someone else, will be able to help you, even if it's just to listen. Over the years, now that we're all remote, it's probably more like 30 minutes. It was a lot easier to ask the question when we were sitting next to each other in the office. It wasn't as much of a distraction, but now it's probably more like 30 minutes.
Mhm.
And so we still have that rule. If you're not making any progress and you feel almost like hopeless, like this isn't possible, ask the question. And asking a question doesn't mean you're necessarily pivoting, but your strategy for what you're working on will probably pivot because you're asking the question.
Interesting.
And that's what I think one of the things that I excel with when I listen to people and they're explaining to me why something is not working or why something is so difficult. I often will approach it the exact opposite way and just say, well, why don't you just do this other thing? And I've been doing that for years too. I remember when I was in school, I sometimes would have to write an essay for English or some other class, and I would procrastinate and not do the greatest job up front and prepare weeks in advance, like the good students. And what would happen is I'd get to the point where I was desperate to write this essay, and I really thought, oh my gosh, I don't even like this topic. And what I would do, the trick that I would trick myself was, okay, I'm going to take the role of the opposite view and argue against myself. And I would start with that. And then just by thinking about it from that perspective, I would get the answers that I needed to write my real essay. And I do the same thing today when an employee says, we're trying to synchronize the database and this is happening, this happening. I'll say, well, why don't we just do the exact opposite? And sometimes it works. And other times other times they'll come up with the argument for why it doesn't work and then realize, oh wait, we could do this instead.
I love this. Yeah. I know for me, I often talk with people and I can see they're so hung up in it themselves that I'll just say, let's take it and pretend we're looking at it as either a case study or this is happening to somebody else. And just that shift allows people to open their mind a little bit. I know I've used that myself and I found it really effective. So I'm interested, I look back and while they didn't feel so at the time, some of my bigger mistakes have turned out to be some of my bigger successes. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, wow. I mean, I like to say to our clients that we've made every mistake already when it comes to Salesforce. So that's why you hire us, because if you do it on your own, you're going to make those mistakes too. Whereas we've learned those lessons. So on the small things, on the technical fronts, we've made all the mistakes. Those are not, business impacting mistakes though. They're small things. On the bigger picture when it comes to the company, I think there are decisions that I made early on that have negatively impacted our growth and negatively impacted our revenue, but I don't think I would change it. Most of those decisions were kind of core value decisions. So, for instance, from day one, we've had W-2 employees, and we pay for their medical and dental premiums for the employees. I know we have competitors who have 1099 contractors instead and don't have W-2 employees, and they don't give benefits. And they only, pay them, when they work or when the project's done and all sorts of stuff like that. No, our employees, they have very stable income. They're paid well. They have good benefits. I like to think they're happy. We have employees that have been with us for over 10 years. I don't think it's a mistake, right? I don't. I would rather have less growth and lower revenues, but have that camaraderie with our team and feel good about what we do, than to have had much better growth and be a 10 times a big company, but not feel good about it.
Yes, I like this. Have you ever said no to growth because it just wasn't aligned?
We internally, we don't advertise, but we internally do say no to certain industries. And often it wasn't an immediate no. We took on a client, we got to know them, we got to know the nature of their industry, and then we kind of all looked around the room like, "Ugh, we don't feel good about that. Let's not work with these people anymore." And we don't have a conversation with the client saying we don't want to work with you, we don't like what you do or who you are as a person. We don't say that. We typically just ensure that we price ourselves out of future contracts.
Got it. Got it.
Um,
Interesting.
yeah, and that way, there's no hard feelings, but we won't work with them anymore.
Interesting. I like that. I like that plan where nobody really gets hurt and you just keep moving forward. So tell me
Yeah.
this. What impact are you most proud of, not publicly or professionally, but personally?
Personally, so we hire people who don't fit the mold for these roles. We try to look for people who are talented and smart, and have great customer service skills and are passionate, um, but they don't necessarily have years of experience working at a consulting firm. Maybe they've never even used Salesforce before. Maybe they don't have a college degree. And we've given so many people that first job, that stepping stone. And unfortunately, a lot of them end up moving on to, roles at these big companies where they get paid a lot more. But whenever I see them at an event, I get a hug and a smile, and that makes it worth it, knowing
Yeah.
that I've helped people out, and they're much better off now, and their families are better off, and things like that. That's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah. That says who you are in your heart.
Yeah.
Um, how do you define success beyond just metrics?
hmm Yeah, I mean, it really is those smiles and hugs. I know it's silly, but even our clients hug me when I see them, and I don't expect it. Most of our interactions are online. I don't expect a hug, and I get a hug from a client. I'm like, oh wow, not only did we help their business, but we helped them in their career. Um, they had a successful project. They trust us and they rely on us. And that, all the employees, the clients that are all happy and doing better because of the work we do, I think really makes a difference. We do still work with a lot of nonprofits, and so we do get also a lot of kind of personal benefit for that. Some of our nonprofit clients will occasionally invite us to like an event, like a fundraiser, or their big dinner and things like that. And it's so nice to see sometimes the work that we've done have that impact.
Yes.
Um, it really is that type of stuff. It's not, a perfect looking database. That's not going to make me happy at the end of the day that a database looks good. But the impacts that we can have with our employees, with our clients, and then the people that they serve, I think is how I really think about our success.
How does Matt navigate pushback from within or without the company?
Oh, well, from without is a lot easier. I've always said our employees are our number one resource. Um, we don't say that to our clients, but our employees know that they're our number one resource, and that means that when a client is unhappy, um, we'll listen, of course, and if we can fix the problem, we will. But if we think that what they're saying doesn't make sense, it doesn't add up. So if they're basically saying bad things about one of our employees, we take the employees side.
Yes,
Um,
yes. I'm with you.
because
I think our employees are our biggest asset. I've been fortunate in my career to run service organizations and human resources organizations at the same time. And more than one CEO has come to me and said, why are you running these two disparate organizations? And I'd say, yes, but they're not. You see,
Mhm.
they're both customers. One is internal and one is external.
Yeah,
And I love those conversations. So, how do
yeah.
you balance being a leader with being a learner?
You know, to me, it's the same. So as a leader, at least at a small company, I have to constantly be learning. I'm definitely a generalist. So for instance, we just hired a new employee in a state that we haven't operated in before, the state of Illinois. So I have to now learn about the labor laws in Illinois, about the tax laws in Illinois. And every time we have an employee in another state, I need to learn that. So on the business side, I have to constantly learn about just the paperwork involved with running a business. Um, and things change, tax laws change, requirements for vacation and time off change. We're in California, so that's very strict. You gotta always stay on top of that. On the technical side, I have to constantly learn as well. So we work with technology that's changing multiple times a year. There's new technologies like AI and things like that. And I need to know what is important for us to focus on. So I have to learn about it. I also need to be able to help the employees if they ever ask a question. We use a lot of tools. We use tools to keep track of our projects. We use tools for accounting and all sorts of stuff. And I need to learn about those too. So if an employee asks, can we use this tool? I need to make sure, well, is it secure? Is it something that we can rely on for all of our clients? Things like that. So I think I constantly learn. I don't have the chance to not learn. And that's really part of my role. If I was not a leader, but I was an independent contributor who specialized in something very niche, and we have a lot of those, they still learn too, but they learn just on that one area or a few areas. And I have to learn on everything, so there's never enough time to learn it all.
Yes, yes. Good, good, good. Keeps our brains going, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So, what's the biggest, boldest vision for your company for the next 5 years?
Oh, we're growing. We're definitely growing. So, in our space, in the Salesforce space, right now, I think it's actually a period of consolidation. And so I think that partners are going to start merging and gobbling each other up. And you can see it actually if you look at the news and the industry news and things like that. I'd like to think that maybe we'll be one of the folks that can gobble up another firm, but merge with other firms. And I know a lot of the partners. It's a great ecosystem, the Salesforce ecosystem, because all the partners are very friendly. It's not very cutthroat. And so a lot of us have these conversations. A lot goes into it to figure out if it's possible and is it a good fit. But we have some great systems internally. We've really optimized all of our processes, and we operate like a much bigger company than we are. And so I think that we're well positioned to be able to kind of take over or merge with some other companies that maybe have good clients and great revenue, but they don't have those processes yet.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah.
What shifts are going on in our culture today that light you up?
Oh, I try not to get too political publicly because I'm a leader. I don't want any of our clients to hold anything that I might think against us. And that does put me in an awkward role sometimes because I do have opinions. But as a leader, I try to kind of stay in the middle and not upset anybody. We're fortunate, I think, that internally we all are very similar. We definitely are similar in terms of our views towards databases and technical stuff. So we don't really have any arguments there. There might be some differences of opinion on other things. But I think a big concern of mine since I was a child is the environment. I'm always concerned that we are, doing things that we don't have to do. Um, we drive cars that pollute. Uh, I order stuff from Amazon, and I'll order two things 2 days in a row instead of trying to consolidate, and that results in more vans on the road and boxes being made and all sorts of stuff like that. And I wish that we could slow down maybe and just have a more relaxed lifestyle than the lifestyle that we currently have, where everything is urgent and it must be done right away. And I think that if we did slow down, it probably would have not only personal benefits for all of us, but benefits on the global scale as well.
Yeah, yes. What are you most hopeful about for our world today?
Well, I've been fortunate that I've gotten to travel a lot, and I've met people from all over the country and all over the world. And I love it when I can meet someone from literally around the planet who grew up speaking a different language with a different religion, looks different, wears different clothes. They happen to speak English because almost everybody does now. And we can have a conversation and have a great time and have so much in common. And it always amazes me that that's even possible. So that two people who had nothing in common turned out to have so much in common and can even communicate and express ideas, and we understand each other. And so when I have those moments, that's what gives me really hope for the world and for the future, knowing that there's so many people out there that are friendly and like-minded. Then I think if push came to shove, I think we could get through it.
If your much younger self were watching this podcast, what would you tell him?
What would I tell my much younger self? I would say get multiple mentors. And all at the same time too. I've had different mentors over time, but it wasn't an active idea that I had to get a mentor. It was just someone who saw me and decided to mentor me informally. But I think that really, if I could go back, I'd say look for people who are where you want to be. They're on that same path, and ideally multiple, because you want to talk to people who are at different points on that path. If you're only talking to someone who's already at the end, they may have forgotten some of the things along the way. The situations could also be different, years later. And so you want to find people who are a little ahead of you, about a medium ahead of you, and then, really far ahead of you. And rely on them, ask them questions, trust them. I wish I had done that more.
Yes, yes. If a new founder, someone ready to take a new venture in life were watching this podcast, what wisdom would you share with that person as they were embarking on this journey you've been on?
Well, the joke is don't do it, right? That's what you hear a lot. But I do talk to a lot of founders, both products and service companies, and I let them know it can be lonely, it can be exhausting. You get burnout and things like that. but it's also the potentially the best job you ever had. And so you have to, make sure it's really for you, and that's what you're really passionate about, and then it's worth it. If you can find someone you trust to partner with, do that. And if you find someone who you don't trust, don't partner with them.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I lead a CEO group, and invariably it comes back to one of the topics will be some pathway comes back to how lonely it can be at the top, and we focus on that and how we use that group together to be able to even share personal stuff that they just don't get to share because you don't get to
Yeah.
often when you're at that level. And it definitely is a challenge for some people, especially those of us that are interested in people and how we feel and what we think about things. Matt Kaufman, MK Partners, it's really, really great to have you on Opening Pathways today. Please tell the viewers a little bit about your company and how we can find you.
Sure. Well, so MK Partners is a Salesforce partner that provides consulting services and customization services for Salesforce. We also publish Mambo Merge, a document generation app for Salesforce. You can find us at mkpartners.com. And I welcome every conversation. Whether you're ready to buy Salesforce or just want to talk about it, you can reach out and we'll talk.
Wonderful. Matt, thank you for being on Opening Pathways today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And to my viewers, this is Tom Lenoble, and I'll see you next time.